I just saw Star Wars, it was awesome. Hello, I'm Stage Fright Magoo, and I'm gonna delve into the spoilers in the latest Star Wars, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. It feels pretty good to breathe about this now. I was afraid that I was going to say too much. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people spoil things during the movie, and I don't want to do that for anybody. So please, don't be a jerk and spoil things for everybody. That's messed up. So yeah, let's get right down to it. There's about like 3 things that happen in episode 8 that kind of feel like a cop-out. To say whether they're red herrings or that they're probably gonna come back in the next one kind of makes everything feel like a fever dream. It really takes a toll on you emotionally, depending on how invested you were. The first cop-out for me was Rey's identity. In The Force Awakens, the question of Rey's identity is built up very heavily. You wonder who this person is, why she's alone in the desert, who might she be related to, could she be a Skywalker, could she be a Kenobi? In the words of Johnny Shitcase, who knows? She finds Luke Skywalker in Ireland. I'm just gonna call it Ireland, I don't remember what it's called. They say it's where the original Jedi text is, but I'm just gonna fucking call it Ireland. So she finds him in Ireland and they start their Padawan Jedi relationship. He eventually agrees to train her, even though he's very reluctant about it. And at some point he even tells her to go into where the texts are. And it kind of plays off the scene in The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda tells him to go in the cave. And I thought she was gonna see Kylo Ren and decapitate him, and she sees herself once Kylo Ren is demasked, but that wasn't the case. That was kind of a red herring in itself because she ends up going into an actual cave in a part of the island, and she's hoping to find out something more about herself. She's hoping to find out about her parents, and it's this really trippy scene where she continually sees the reflection of the back of her head, and it's just repetitious. And eventually, Kylo Ren reveals that she's not connected to the story by blood. She just happened to have been at the right place at the right time, and that she's not related to Luke or Obi-Wan. A girl is no one. A girl has no name. You don't know if he's saying that necessarily to mess with her mind, or if that's the truth. That's what happened to her. For me, that was kind of disappointing because you think that slowly but surely she's going to find out who she is and that it'll be a really good payoff. It being the middle episode, if this is going to be another trilogy, you kind of have to wait and see how it ends. Throughout the time that Rey's in Ireland, there's a running joke between her and these reptilian nuns, and every time she is training, she accidentally kind of destroys a piece of the land and it pisses them off. I really wanted to see the nuns' reaction when the temple is just completely destroyed. I also want to bring up really quickly that even though Rey does not destroy the temple herself, you do get your first cameo with Yoda. Yoda appears to Luke when he's still deciding whether or not he should go and help Leia and everybody or not. So I think Yoda convinces him that not everyone who is Force sensitive is technically a Jedi, which kind of seems obvious before they're discovered as potentially becoming a Jedi. Who are they? They're a person who is Force sensitive. But then again, because they are Force sensitive, they could possibly be a Jedi, and should they be trained to become one? Yoda kind of convinces Luke to accept the new possibilities of what could come and that he should not rely on the old rules as much. So that kind of leads to them destroying the original Jedi temple with all the original text. The other cop-out for me was the battle between Finn and Phasma. It's established in Force Awakens that Finn has beef with her, and they do battle it out, but it wasn't as epic as I would have liked it to have been. I get it, there are so many characters in this story that it's hard to focus on all of them at the same time. It just seemed like this would have been something that would have built up to a better fight scene than what we got. Oh, but I was chuckling when Finn calls Phasma Chrome Dome. That is such a Star Wars thing to say. I mean, I guess they're keeping the mystery, but if she's dead, what's the point? You still don't see Phasma's face. If anything, you kind of see her eyeball, and you're wondering if it is a red herring, and if she does come back, is she gonna come back like Doctor Doom, where all her metal armor is stuck to her skin and she's in a lot of pain? And I keep forgetting that Brienne from Game of Thrones plays Phasma. Do you understand how amazing this character could be built up, especially with an actress that already has that kind of reputation built based on this one character? It's kind of like when Liam Neeson plays Aslan and Qui-Gon, and I didn't watch the recent Titans, so I don't know if he plays Zeus or not, but what I'm getting at is that he plays a god thrice, and he ends up having this badass reputation. So can you imagine the badass reputation that could build up for this actress? Like, come on. I'm honestly kind of gonna be pissed if they ever take this bullshit route of having episode 9 begin as somebody realizing that the scenes with Rey's identity and Phasma versus Finn were all just some really long ass pointless dream sequence. But word around the street is that they're gonna start years into the future at General... was she a general? Princess General? General Leia's, or General Organa's funeral. And that's my really poor segue into what I'm gonna talk about next. Carrie Fisher's part. This is her last movie. For it being her last movie, there was a lot of attitude in it, and unapologetic. Throughout the whole movie I was cracking up because I don't know if it's whatever work she might have had done over the years, or the way Johnson was directing her, or what she kind of felt like she needed to bring to the role. There was, I'm not gonna say resting bitch face, but there's this expression in her eyes throughout the whole time. She's looking at characters, or she's reacting to the situation like, really bitch? Really? This is what we're gonna do now? Oh, and after almost 3 full trilogies, we finally see Leia using the Force. So that was pretty fucking cool, but the way that kind of led up to it seemed really weird, and I guess it's just life imitating art at this point, because the whole movie apparently was shot and completed just before Carrie Fisher had died. So there is a scene where her ship is blown up and you see what you think is her lifeless body floating in space. In shit. Movie. She's only been dead a year. I am not ready for this. My fucking anxiety is not handling this shit. But then it's okay because you see her finger twitch and she uses the Force to pull herself back into a closed part of the ship that is safe. A functioning part of the ship that hasn't exploded. So it might have taken way too long for us to finally see something like this, or it might not have been enough. I mean, come on, just to propel yourself into a ship, that's all she's gonna do really after all this time. I mean, Luke couldn't bring her along with some Padawans to train her. Although it's probably for the better that he didn't, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. But I'm just glad that we finally got to see something. I mean, who knows, maybe it took her a long time to hone her powers. Still not getting over that scene where you see her lifeless body floating in space. They're always talking about how Kylo Ren is in conflict in this movie, and they did a pretty good way of showing it. There's a scene where he is supposed to be the one who blows up Leia's ship, and you see that he still can't. He kind of gives way to somebody else who does it for him. Even if he switched sides to help them in the end, he killed his dad. Or his dad helped him kill himself. There is a blessing in disguise to this. Usually when a main contributor to a film passes away, unfortunately, either their scenes are cut, they have somebody to step in, either related to the contributor or a close colleague. But this time, because it was completed before Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away, they were able to stick with the whole story. And I think in this case it is nice because we got to see the whole thing as it was originally intended. But I've been hearing other opinions that they could have dealt with Leia's death either just leaving it to when the ship exploded and she is floating in space, or by switching places with Laura Dern. Laura Dern's character is like a protege to Leia. She's someone who looks up to Leia during the initial rebellion against the Empire. She's been helping with the rebels in her own way. She has awesome purple hair, but because her character mirrors Princess Leia, then it could have easily been that Leia takes her place instead. Laura Dern's character eventually ends up taking one for the team during a tense situation and stays behind to man the ship while everybody evacuates to safety. Leia could have taken her place. The thing with that is that time and time again, as much as Leia wants to make these sacrifices, or that she's willing to make these sacrifices, there will be people that are fighting for her because they believe in what the mission is, and she is kind of this symbol of hope for them. Almost like a new hope. She needs to stay in being that symbol for everyone to survive. Those would definitely have been interesting twists if that's what they ended up doing. But again, I'm happy with how it is here. It's not often that you get to see a movie play the way it was initially planned out when there is a passing of a major contributor. So what kind of ticked me off about this part was that Laura Dern volunteers as tribute, and she and Leia have this very bittersweet goodbye. You know, she's already accepted what she's gonna do. She's accepted that she's going to offer her life in order to save everybody else, including Leia's. She's watching all the mini ships try to get to this old base that is nearby. All of a sudden, the New Order tracks them down and they start blowing up the ships, and it deadass takes Laura Dern 10 ships to be blown up by the New Order for her to do something about it. She instead takes their massive mothership and crashes into the First Order's mothership, if that's the right word. Again, I'm terrible with these names, but those are my terms for it. So for somebody who is already self-accepting of the fact that they are going to die for their cause, and it takes the lives of many of her comrades for her to realize, oh, I'm in a massive fucking ship. I can just crash it into this other massive fucking ship, so they'll stop hurting all of my friend rebels. I understand that they need build-up, they need suspense, and they need time to let these other scenes happen. It wasn't perfect, it was well done, but it was just dumb. I would also like to add that in the midst of this, we lose a really cool looking minor character, Admiral Akbar. Fucking Admiral Akbar. With his squid-like forehead, his bulging eyes, his faint catfish mustache. And at the end, he got caught in a trap. In this part, it was an epic battle, and there was a lot of intensity. There was no time to give Admiral Akbar a moment of silence. So I would like to do that. A moment of silence for Admiral Akbar. In another way, they mirror her as Princess Leia's character through her reaction with Poe. They're kind of starting to hammer in that Poe is Han Solo now that Han Solo has passed away. Poe has the vest. He's showing insubordination to the point where it risks the lives of many that they cannot afford. And Laura Dern and Leia have this back and forth. You know, he doesn't follow the rules, but I like him. I've had somebody like him too. Them having that conversation kind of led me to believe that somehow Poe and Laura Dern are going to bang, which doesn't happen. I'm okay with that. It was just kind of funny how they had that minor build-up between both of them. In this episode, there's also not as much bromance between Poe and Finn. I mean, compared to The Force Awakens, they still get separated at some point, like almost for half the movie. In this case, the only kind of bromance that they have is in the beginning when Finn wakes up and he's naked but covered in plastic. Oh, not only is he covered in plastic, There's like leaking liquids coming out, and Poe is cuddling him down the hallway to help him get clothes on. During the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, the characters are separated, but you realize that they are at their strongest when they're all together. It's kind of seen here. They're the most charming, or they work well when they're all together. And in this case, they don't. Not all of the characters end up meeting all together at the end. Well, it was the same thing with the original trilogy between Han, Luke, and Leia. But at least at some point, they do end up meeting again at the end of each movie. Okay, I take that back. At the end of The Empire Strikes Back, it's only Luke and Leia that end up together. Han is still frozen in carbonite. It is kind of fair that this happened this way, but you know, you still want to see them all together. I didn't watch The Force Awakens right before watching The Last Jedi. Probably should have, but I didn't. Towards the end, you see Poe and Rey meet, and they introduce themselves to each other. I realized, oh yeah, they haven't met yet at this point. Good eye, movie. I'm gonna add one more thing about Rose in this. I know I went on a tangent in the last video about it, but I'm just gonna say, there's a point in the movie where you think that she's dead, and I lost my shit when that scene happened. I just went, fuck this movie. Too many things have happened, too many people have died, fuck this movie. It ended up being okay, but the semi-cop-out for this was that when you think she's about to die, she gives Finn a peck on the lips, which he kind of reciprocates. But possibly he only does that because he thinks that she's dead. And then it turns out that she's not, which is cool for me, who's obviously geeking about this, but I really hope it doesn't go anywhere in the next movie. Like, hey, so we kind of had a moment back there where you thought I was dead, and we kind of shared a kiss, so we're gonna have a will they won't they complicated love triangle between us and Rey, and maybe a complicated love quadrangle with Poe too. Why can't these people just be friends? Except maybe Rey and Finn. I don't know, I like their chemistry. Yeah, for the most part, why can't these people just be friends? There was already kind of love triangle in the original trilogy with Luke, Leia, and Han, but at least there was a bit of a twist. Speaking of really awkward, almost sibling romances, R2-D2 and Luke finally have a moment. Well, Luke finally has a moment with the droids, but individually. So when he finally sees R2-D2, you know, R2-D2 is through the moon, and he is reluctant about teaching Rey or going back to help everybody. So R2-D2 pulls out the holographic message of Leia in the New Hope. Way to bring up a really awkward moment in Luke's life, R2. When he was crushing on a beautiful woman before realizing that that's his long-lost twin sister. I'm not opposed to adding a romance into a story if it's warranted. And even though Rose and Finn seem to get along pretty well, to me it just didn't warrant having a romance at all. Not only am I up for adding a love story into a romance if it's warranted, I am also completely up for adding multiracial couples. Because even though it doesn't seem like a big thing now, I kind of learned that when making an American film, the main demographic that is focused on are Midwestern, Southern audiences. They are the demographic that will most likely go to the movies and tribute to the box office opening. When the Fan4tastic movie came out, they were talking about the brother-sister relationship between Susan and Johnny. They went with the adoption route, which is fine. It's just, I guess, what affected me negatively about the reasoning for them going down that route is because the Midwestern Southern audiences could not believe that these two could be related, which I think is kind of stupid because it's 2017. Everybody's getting together, and multiracial families are a thing. Even if it's not so common in the Midwestern Southern parts of our country, it's a thing. It is a possibility. I feel like that also contributes to the whitewashing of American cinema. Am I going to keep talking about racially charged issues or the issues of race in American cinema. Yeah, because I'm gonna fucking talk about whatever I want to talk about. But also, you know, everyone's a movie buff at the end of the day. I'm gonna talk about movies. But I think it's also important to acknowledge the history of what was going on at the time of it being made, because what was currently happening does affect how the movie was made. What kind of executive choices were and were not made. So speaking of Rose and Finn, on their journey of getting the MacGuffin in Planet MacGuffin, they run into Benicio del Toro, who ends up being a code hacker who can turn off this part of the New Order's mothership that is able to detect the rebellion when they go into light speed. That's kind of genius. After talking about light speed for so long, they're finally able to crack it. I don't know if they really explained how they're able to crack it very well, but that's still a pretty refreshing idea. Del Toro is a very talented Oscar winner, but was he the right choice? I feel like he kind of gets typecast in playing these really seedy characters. To me, he kind of brought his usual suspects gibberish voice to it. But in this case, the character has more of a stutter than is speaking gibberish. I don't know if it was the right approach for a character by him, but that's just me being nitpicky. But otherwise, you know, I'm always up for seeing Benicio del Toro in a movie. He can be very intimidating and very scary when he wants to be, or if the story has it be so. Now I'm going to close with two opinions. The first being Snoke. So in The Force Awakens, Snoke is only seen through hologram, and you see him as this towering figure, and you think, wow, he's gonna be this 15-foot monstrous thing that has to be beaten. Can you imagine the rebellion having to fight that, like a 15-foot alien? That is something that hasn't been seen yet. But now that you see him out of the holograph, he's still a tall, intimidating, but really flamboyant looking figure. He's wearing a golden robe in this like 80s red and black living room. That looks really nice, by the way. Like, I wish my living room looked like that. But I guess because now the mystery is taken away, it's not as intimidating as when you see the Imperial Emperor Palpatine. Here, he kind of looks like a 6-foot thing of melted cheese, which is a bit disappointing. I'm still kind of curious as to how he got that way. I kind of imagine it being like he got into a fight with 89 Batman and just fell into a vat of melted cheese and it just stuck to him and now he's like this. I only keep saying these certain things because certain words like rebellion and conflict have been repeated so many times in The Last Jedi that it could literally become its own drinking game. So Rey senses that there is conflict with Kylo Ren, and she feels compelled to go to him because she thinks that she can change him away from the dark side. So she goes into her Mr. Freeze refrigerator ship and goes to Kylo Ren, but it turns out that it's all a part of his plan to capture her and bring her to Snoke. Snoke tries to convince Rey to bend the knee, and she doesn't, so he tries to mentally torture her a little bit. But all the while, there's a second twist to Kylo Ren's plan. Kylo Ren uses his telekinetic powers to use Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and stab Snoke in half. So it does follow the Star Wars formula in which somebody gets cut in half, but this time they do get cut in half while being singularly stabbed. And the trope of somebody being singularly stabbed with an opening lightsaber. So that's two tropes in one. I kind of like that they're playing around with that a little more. Well, I think for kids who grew up watching Star Wars and having a limited motion lightsaber, it gives more imagination as to what can be done using those weapons. Aside from that, after all of this build up to this character who's supposed to be a supreme being, that's the end of him. This and my next point are two examples of things that you would expect to see in episode 9 and not episode 8. So again, if this turns into a fever dream where somebody wakes up and this whole episode is a dream sequence, like Snoke's not really dead, what the fuck? That's very poor storytelling. Either that or the next episode better be some giant payoff of some sort. Unless they try to do some other bullshit and divide the third part into two. And then the third twist in Kylo Ren's plan occurs when, after Snoke is killed, Rey thinks, oh, he did it so he can turn back and be good. Han Solo's death would not have been for naught. And then it turns out that Kylo Ren only killed Snoke to become the new Supreme Leader. The movie just fucking keeps playing with your mind. It's a never-ending black hole of, I won't say double standards. Seriously, is it appropriate to use the word gaslighting in this regard? Like, he is just non-stop gaslighting Rey. Not having none of it. I guess for me, I'm also still hoping for a reveal that Rey and Kylo Ren are twins somehow. I think because in the book, Leia's children are twins as well. Maybe I'm making that up, I didn't read the books. I just want to comment, I love the backstabbery between the token ginger and Kylo Ren. The token ginger comes in and he sees Snoke cut in half. You see him pull his coat back and take out his laser gun to finish Kylo Ren off until Kylo Ren rises and he just nonchalantly hides that. I thought that was a really good touch, that in the New Order there is no loyalty whatsoever. Everyone is technically in it for themselves and they want to see themselves work up the ladder. So I think I'm finally going to talk about the major point, Luke Skywalker. Oh man, I was not expecting this. This movie's just toying with you so badly. In the seemingly bottom of this never-ending black void that you're tumbling down, you see that he eventually comes around, and even though he's still reluctant, he trains Rey, but then he also comes back to help the rebellion and Leia. And the way that they did it was really good. Like, I had to sit, I thought about it day and night. It's been about a week since I've seen it for the first time. I haven't seen it for a second time yet, but I'm still thinking about it. And everyone makes it to the base. The thing is that it's still full of 70s futuristic equipment that is also limited, by the way, and the New Order comes in with this giant-ass laser cannon that is trying to break down the only thing that's protecting the base. Luke comes in just in the nick of time, and he has little moments with R2-D2, C-3PO separately, as well as Leia. I kind of wish that they had a little longer to connect, not even to necessarily reminisce, see how the other person was, because they haven't seen each other in decades. He's been a hermit in Ireland for so long. He fucking comes out all badass and shit, and like, you guys stay here, try to escape, I'm going to fight off the whole New Order by myself. And as soon as he walks out, Kylo Ren sees him and says, I want you, Token Ginger, to use all of the guns on this one man and do not stop until he's dead. I don't know if it's Lethal Weapon territory, but it just gets into that cheesy action movie badassery where after they eventually stop, out of the fog of laser bullets comes Luke Skywalker, totally unscathed, and he does this little... He doesn't say shit, he just does that one small action, and it is amazing. Kylo Ren and him go into an epic fight. And I just wanted to go to this little tidbit about how Luke ultimately ends up being a hermit. He tried to train Kylo Ren into becoming a Jedi Master, along with these other child Padawans. And there is an unfortunate misunderstanding. He sensed that there was conflict, as they keep saying, with Kylo Ren. He kind of innocently yet guiltily goes into Kylo Ren's hut. He has a single hut that he's sleeping in. He thinks, oh, because I sense this conflict within him, I might have to destroy my own nephew. And so he prepares to do so, but then he changes his mind because he realizes, you know, people can have the ability to change and make their own destiny, that he can help this young person to do good. And in thinking all of this with his lightsaber out, Kylo Ren wakes up with his big black beady eyes and sees that his uncle is about to murder him. Oh, what? No, this? I just wanted to know if you needed a nightlight or something. Come on. You know, Kylo Ren does not take it very well. He has the roof of the hut cave in onto Luke, and he kills all of the younglings. By the way, I really fucking hate that they call the children younglings. But he kills all the younglings and eventually gets trained under Snoke. That is the beef between these two. And when they go duel it out, you feel it. You feel all that tension from before. 60-year-old Luke Skywalker is doing all these fucking crazy flips and tricks. He's kicking ass still in his prime. But eventually it looks like he's going to lose. And you start thinking like, oh shit, it's just gonna be like Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is going to submit and let Kylo Ren kill him. This is the end of Luke Skywalker. Perhaps we'll see him as a Jedi ghost, but for the most part, this is him as a living person. You see him do the move that Darth Vader does, but then you see him still standing. Kylo Ren is confused. He stabs Luke. This ray of light coming in through the stabbing. It's so bad. At this point, I was thinking, oh crap, so wait, is he Jesus? No? Is that what's happening? And then my boyfriend whispered to me, he's achieved a higher state of being. So he's Buddha now? All of a sudden, Luke reveals himself now and then disappears. And you see Luke back in Ireland sitting in a meditative state. I'm honestly terrible at figuring things out sometimes. He super meditated his way into tricking another Jedi into thinking that they're actually physically fighting, as well as the spectators. It was all like a fucking avatar, essentially. Your heart officially breaks when you see Luke stare at that double sunset again. He comes to terms with what he's done in the past, and he did the best that he could to make amends for it. Like Yoda, he just disappears out of his clothes and goes to wherever Jedis go next. And sorry, that sounded really gross, really friggin' dorky, but I'm fucking choking up about this shit. This is the main character. This is somebody that almost everybody has grown up with. You've seen him in his whiny teenager phase, and then you see him in a short time, but with urgency, become a Jedi Master. And then you see him in his old age in retirement hermit mode with regrets. He shows that you can't do anything to change the past, but you can try to prevent it from adversely affecting the future. And now he is fucking gone. I didn't even think this was possible, but they one-upped the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi. All this time this movie's been telling us to use our feelings, and now I don't know what to do with them! Thinking back about it, in terms of the fight scene and everything, they alluded to it pretty well. Like, I was fucking floored. When you see him come face to face with Kylo Ren, he is in his gray or dark Jedi garb. But when he's back in Ireland in meditation mode, he is in a traditional Jedi garb like Obi-Wan. Along with having the dark gray Jedi garb, the hair on his head and his facial hair are a little shorter, kind of in the way that Kylo Ren remembers him from that fateful night. The other hint is when everyone's trapped in the base and Luke appears to have that moment with Leia and C-3PO a little bit. But after a while they realize, how did he get in here? There's only one way in and one way out. Just beyond clever. Yeah, that is the end of one of the most beloved characters. This movie is overall bitter. Sorry, I'm still... This movie is overall bittersweet. It didn't play it safe compared to The Force Awakens. I admire and respect it a lot for trying to do something different. It didn't want to comply to this Star Wars formula. A twist like this is something that you would expect more in Episode 9 than Episode 8, but you still have to give it a lot of credit for taking this risk so early in this part of the trilogy, and at least for just attempting it at all. Because now if you think about it, almost everybody with the exception of Chewbacca and the droids are not there anymore. You're probably going to see Luke in the next movie as a Jedi ghost, but as for him physically being there to help everybody is no longer possible. Did I enjoy this movie? I did. I went in with my own theories, but unlike the prequels, I was pleasantly surprised. I fully give credit to Johnson and the creative team behind it for at least making an attempt to keep the series refreshing and interesting. Again, I would see it a second time to catch things I might have not seen the first time around. I heard recently that fans are so angered by this edition that they are starting to petition for it to not be in canon with this story, which doesn't necessarily make sense to me. I keep saying this over and over again. It does do things that you would expect to happen in the later film, but I don't fully disagree with them for making these choices. Because eventually you're going to have to do something different to either, you know, keep it contemporary or fun for the current audience, yet bring in a new audience. I don't think that it's as hateful where it warrants to have all these signatures to make it not canon with these stories. Thank you for taking the time to check this out. I hope it was informative. It might help you with coping with what you just saw. And if you're seeing this without having seen the movie, why? I still think it's one of those things that you need to see on your own. And it's worth seeing it in the theater. I hope you had a happy and safe holiday, and thanks for your time.